Hello everyone from Rome. I'm Maria Grazia Maglione, President of TESOL Italy, and I'd like to welcome you to the second plenary session of our 47th convention. Our speaker for this session is Professor Dennis Murray, and the title of our session is The 7 Ages of Professional Learning, a Personal Account. Due to a healthy issue, Professor Dennis Murray is not able to join the session live. She sent us a pre-recorded session we are going to start soon after Lucilla Lopriore, TESOL Italy past president, will present our special keynote speaker and her dear and long-standing friend. I also want to tell you that Professor Dennis Murray will be delighted to receive your feedback and your questions. So please write your questions in the chat or in the Q&A feature, or please write at tesolitaly@gmail.com. Lucilla, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you for attending this plenary of the 47th conference of TESOL Italy. I'm particularly moved by making this presentation because as Maria Grazia has just said, not only Professor Emeritus Denise Murray is very famous in our field, but she's a very close friend, and I've been so happy and lucky to meet her in my professional life, to the point that she became a very good friend. She and her husband, Bill. They came to Italy quite often, and Denise was a plenary at one of the TESOL conventions. Let me introduce Denise Murray's outstanding career. She's an applied linguist. She's been a language educator and administrator. She was founding chair of the Department of Linguistics and Language Development at San Jose State University, California, for years, and director of the National Center for English Language Teaching and Research at Macquarie University, Australia, because Denise Murray comes from Australia. She has published more than 100 journal articles and book chapters, as well as authoring and editing academic volumes. She's the co-author with Marianne Christensen of the volumes What English Language Teachers Need to Know. She served on the board of directors of TESOL International and was president in 1996-97. And please, I didn't remember that, but when I read it, I said, well, that was exactly the same year I became president of TESOL Italy. So what a coincidence, serendipity. She's a recipient of TESOL's Elatis Award out of James Elatis, one of the founders of TESOL, for distinguished service to the profession, and the 50 Award for outstanding contributions in teaching and research. Her presentation, already the title already mentioned by Maria Grazia, is The 7 Ages of Professional Learning, a Personal Account. We are all very grateful at TESOL because she has chosen a topic which is very relevant to all of us professionals, all of us who are in the field as teachers, as professors, as learners. And as she states in her abstract, she says, professional learning for second language educators occurs through a variety of encounters and experiences in different contexts. Many of these are planned, but many are just unplanned. And I think it becomes even more meaningful when something is unplanned, because we manage to see things we wouldn't have seen whether it was planned. She quotes William Shakespeare in the famous line from As You Like It, all the world's a stage. And she gives us an account of over 50 years as a language teacher and teacher educator. And she says, I will reflect on what I have learned and try to unlearn about the complex endeavor of teaching and learning a new language. I will provide a framework for teachers and teacher educators to examine their own professional learning from a new perspective. Thank you, Denise. Thank you for offering us such a wonderful piece of your wisdom. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
It's lovely to be able to participate in TESOL Italy again. I'm only sad that because of COVID and various other things, we're doing this online rather than in person. It's always been a delight to be in Italy, to meet all of the TESOL Italy professionals who are so warm and welcoming. So I'm going to talk about the 7 ages of professional learning from a very personal account. Many people do research on the human life cycle. Some of it is done just on human in general, not in anything in particular, about your cognitive development going from a child to an adolescent and an adult, and so on. And this man called Huberman, he's researched teachers and has found that the life cycle includes a career entry, get stabilized in the profession, you have diversification or change going on. You reach a point of serenity, hopefully, but before that you need to do some stock taking. And conservatism, but it doesn't mean it in the political sense. It means that you just can sort of continue doing the same thing rather than getting excited about new ideas and everything again. And then disengagement is just usually leaving the profession. But I thought rather than use these particular events during the life cycle, that I'd use Shakespeare's poem from As You Like It, the famous one where he says that all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. So I'm not going to, although I do have 7 ages, I am not going to elaborate it that far, but I am going to show you the different parts of my life and how that affected a TESOLer, somebody who's been involved in the profession, in the teaching profession, for almost 60 years. So the first stage for Shakespeare is at first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. And yes, that's a photograph of me with my mother when I was a baby. And for variety, this is my husband when he was a baby. So in the early stages of teaching, I was only 19 at the time and teaching high school. It was all very exciting, but also very daunting. In fact, I'm not sure that I knew what I was doing. I felt that the training that I'd received didn't prepare me adequately. And so what I did, which most teachers do, is I fell back onto the way I was being taught, which is not, as I've learned over my profession, the most effective way of producing effective student outcomes. I was often taught in large schools, in schools that had, as you can see, very large classes. But then I was lucky to teach too in schools that had smaller classes. When I was in England, which is where this second photograph comes from, and the girls are, sort of laughing at me because they had just given me a gift because I was leaving England and going back to Australia. And this was a particularly influential experience for me at this particular school. It was a private girls' school from kindergarten through to the advanced high school in Britain. But we had a number of Japanese girls, as you can see in the photograph, whose fathers were on assignment to London in banks and in the Japanese embassy. And their families said that girls needed more help with their English. Now, I need to tell you that I wasn't teaching English in those days. I was teaching mathematics. I was trained as an English teacher and a mathematics teacher, but everybody always wanted maths teachers. They're always short of a math teacher. And so I ended up teaching math only at this particular school with the odd physics class. And these girls were very, very good at mathematics, I must say. And they were still learning English, but their fathers felt that they needed more help. And also they wanted a tutor for the wives. And so I was poor at the time. I wanted to make as much money as I could to travel to Europe in all of the school holidays. And so I was asked by the English teacher, would I be interested in doing it? And I started tutoring these young women and their mothers. And that changed my life. It literally changed my life. Although I enjoyed teaching high school in some ways, I found teaching adults and teaching language really exciting. And so while I was in Britain, I decided that I would start to learn how to teach it properly, because I realized that teaching literature was quite different from teaching English to people who couldn't speak it at all, which is what the mothers were like. But it also led to a love affair with everything Japanese, from Japanese art to Japanese literature to Japanese architecture and, of course, Japanese food. So that was a particularly enjoyable period of my life, but it led to change. And I feel that that's sort of an important aspect of our lives and our life cycle as educators. But I know everybody says embrace change. It isn't easy to suddenly change careers. I mean, being a high school teacher was very stable. I wasn't going to get fired. Becoming an ESL teacher, I had no idea what the future held. But like the butterfly, the chrysalis, if it doesn't change to a butterfly, we aren't left with that beautiful, beautiful creature called a butterfly. So change really can lead to something much more beautiful. So the next stage of my life, and this is sort of strange, I realize, and then the lover sighing like a furnace with woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Well, this period I was teaching back in Australia. I returned, as you heard, and I started work at the Institute of Languages in New South Wales, teaching international students who'd come to Australia to learn English or go on to university. But in the same institute, we also taught all of the immigrants to Australia, taught them English. And this is where I really fell in love with ESL as a field. And Dave Noonan was not my lover. The point of this particular slide is what he is doing is demonstrating with me. We were teaching at a summer school for a PhD program, and he's got this little dialogue. Denise, what is Denise, this is chalk. Chalk. Good, very good, right? He's telling us about the methods that we were having to use when we were at this Institute of Languages. Not very successful as language teachers, I can tell you. So we decided that we would just do something with the curriculum. And that was why this was such an amazing period for me, because we rewrote the curriculum from beginning to end for both the migrant program and for the international student program. We moved into giving students projects and doing it project-based, with some grammar lessons and pronunciation lessons and so on, but everything around the project for the week, so that there was a unity in everything that they learned. If they were writing, if they were reading, if they were speaking, it was all in a unified area of thinking and arguing. And this was very, very exhilarating for me. I decided that I really needed to get more credentials than what I'd done in England, which was just getting the certificate. So I went back to school at night while I taught during the day to get my master's degree. And the master's degree was in linguistics, but I did my thesis on ESL. But the master's degree being in linguistics was also very useful to me because I really did love language and analyzing language. So the thing that I learned during this period, as I was teaching with amazing people like David Noonan, who, as you know, is incredibly creative. But the thing was, he wasn't the only one. I was with a bunch of we had more than a half a dozen staff, but there were about a half a dozen of us who together created so much. The two of us, like these ants, were able to do far more together when all of us were working on developing these curricula. And many of the other teachers there went on to become very famous in the ESL field. And I only chose David because he's been a long-time friend, and everybody seems to know him. So what I learned from this period is that you can be creative through collaboration. We often think of creativity as being something that is internal, the artist in their attic creating something. But I found that the most creative times for me, not just when I was at this institute, but throughout my career, has been through collaboration. Because you bring new ideas together. I have colleagues now that, I will have a particular idea and they take it and run with it, and it turns into a different thing. But the thing it turns into is bigger and better than what we started with. So it's like the symbiotic relationship of the fish and the anemone. Neither can live without each other. And I feel when we're teaching in a school or an institute or a university, that it's working together that makes all the difference in producing work that is of value to our students, that really helps them to learn. So then we move to my next stage in Shakespeare's ages. I know soldier seems even stranger than lover, but you could see that I fell in love with ESL or TESOL, or however we want to name it, in that period. During this period, the soldier who had full of strange oaths and bearded like the bard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick to quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. I loved the even in the cannon's mouth because in this period, I was working very closely. I'm not talking about my day job now. I'm talking about the work that I did for the local affiliate in California where I live and TESOL International. I did a lot of work and interest in advocacy. And why do I think advocacy is important? Well, there's the soldier, but it's not that sort of soldier. It's this sort of soldier I'm talking about. I was even able to find a protest that was in Italy, I believe, or maybe that's Spanish, I'm sorry. Both my Italian and my Spanish are not wonderful, but I believe it's in Italy. And I think it's true. I think, therefore, I protest. And I don't mean protest against things. Advocacy doesn't mean that. Advocacy means pleading for a cause. And I think as educators, we need to plead for our subject area and for our learners. We need to talk to whoever it is. Is it government? Is it the owner of the school you teach at? Is it the principal? Is it your program director? But speaking on behalf of students who often don't have a voice in the classroom. And that's what I interpret this even in the cannon's mouth to mean, that even when everything is going against you, that, you know, it just seems that you can't get done what you want done, then go back to the idea that came before, collaboration. Work with others to affect that change that, you know, so many schools desperately need, because I feel it helps us as a person as well. So then we move on to the next stage, and then the lawyer, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. Well, I'm not thinking of this sort of a lawyer who stands there and judges everybody. I'm thinking more of this sort of a lawyer, a judge, a leader. A judge should be a leader. And we know how the birds have a leader, but they also trust their team. The bird that is the leader of these flocks that fly from north to south every year and back again, they trust that the flock is following them. And that's a period of my life where I spent a lot of time in leadership roles. In Katisol, in TESOL, and also chair of my department, and then head of a national centre in Australia. Leadership was challenging. But, you know, as teachers, we're leaders anyway in our own environment. We are leaders in the classroom, but we also lead from behind. We don't necessarily need to hold a role that's leadership. Every time you talk to a colleague and give them some piece of advice or help them with something, you are actually exhibiting a leadership skill. Leadership is thinking about the future and what is best for the institution where you are, of how it can move towards the future and continue to do well. And it's about people. That takes me back to, you know, each of the schools that I was, and stages that I've just been talking about. In each one of those, people were really important. In England and in Australia, but particularly in England, in that school that I was teaching at, I made lifelong friends. And in fact, one of them, her daughter is my godchild. And next week, I'm going to New Zealand to visit them, and then to Australia to family. So the next section, when I was working with Dave Moon and all the other team at the University of New South Wales, it was the colleagues that was so important, and trusting them. Right, so, you know, in advocacy, how would TESOL and Katisol and TESOL Italy, how would we be able to do the work that we do in helping teachers with their professional development, how would we be able to do that without being a leader? So I think it's very important for us as educators, and particularly as English language educators, to try and find opportunities to lead, even if it's not to have a named leadership role. So the sixth stage, right? That's where I am. And, you know, shifts to, you know, spectacles. Yes, I've got spectacles. I've just taken them off because I can see almost as well without them. And your manly voice turns to a childish treble. I think Shakespeare was wrong, I'm sorry to say. I don't think the sixth stage is that at all. I think this is the sixth stage. She's not riding away from anything. She's riding towards that beautiful ocean or lake that's ahead of her. You can see that the road is going ahead. She's enjoying herself. She's out enjoying nature, right? This is the sixth stage. It's a time for exploring more because you have time to explore. That's what I'm enjoying most. Now that I'm more or less retired, I'm retired from a paid job, but I'm enjoying working with my colleagues. on writing books and articles and things like that. But it's a time where you also can think. It's very hard when you're teaching, very hard to have time to relax, sit back and think more than just, oh, well, how did the lesson day go today? Oh, it was okay. But to think really carefully and critically about what you had intended to do and what you achieved and why the students achieved it or why they didn't. Everybody talks about reflective practice, but it's hard to do when you're teaching. And I admit that. I know that for me, it was often very, very hard to keep track of what I was doing because every day is so busy. But I think if we spend too much of our time doing busy work, we're not actually doing any service to our students because we're giving them a role model that says being busy is all that matters. But really, that's not the case. Thinking is really important. Not just thinking, how am I going to solve this problem, but thinking about your world and how you fit in it, all the things that make us human beings, And what I found is that we tend to follow different trends in our field. This is where my thinking has led me. But we're often not innovating. We're just doing busy work, trying to find a new way because what we're doing is not working how we would like to. And it's the engagement and learning that's important for our learners. And engagement here is key because, as I said, the theme that comes through all of my stages in life has been people. Engaging with other people, because it's through that engagement that I was able to engage with material, with ideas, with all of the linguistic knowledge that I now have, which is not all of it. I must say there's so much more that I still have to learn. But that's what you mean by engagement. You can engage with people to extend your understanding of the field and of teaching and of being human. However, professional learning can happen at every stage if you embrace change, collaborate with each other, advocate and exercise leadership, and think that leads to engagement for you, leads to engagement in your profession, leads to engagement in life. And I end with the last scene of all that Shakespeare said, and this I leave with you. Winnie the Pooh, with this was done after the Queen Elizabeth II died in England, and somebody wrote this cartoon, which I think is rather lovely, of her going off into the sunset with her corgi and Christopher Robin. Thank you.
What an inspirational session.
Really
on behalf of TESOL Italy, we warmly thank Professor Dennis Murray. I just want to remind you that if you want to leave questions, you can do that now in the chat, or please write at tesolitaly.gmail.com. Sorry, I moved. Lucille, I don't know if you want to add something.
No, I just, it's so inspirational, and it's such an exceptional person, something we should all learn from. And she's always been an example to follow. Very difficult, though. So do please write to us so that we can forward your mails and your comments, even just a thank you. That will be very greatly appreciated. And
there are a lot of wonderful comments and feedback.
She's very motivating. She has always been, and always a very acute observer. And I remember when she came for the first time as a plenary to TESOL, it was the time of the elections where Berlusconi had the 3 eyes. Do you remember? It was a long time ago, but I remember that she came straight from the airport to the American library in Via Caetani to give a lecture, and she was just from the airport, and she built her speech on reflections on seeing these political posters on the 3 eyes, sorry, I pronounced them in the Italian way. And she built her whole plenary on that. Very bright, very, very bright. Still remember long walks with her when she visited Rome, and we took her to Ostia Antica. She and Bill were unique.
Yeah, but also such a modernity. I don't know. She spoke about her life. Things happened, many years ago, but so close to everyone, and to everyone. I mean, to teachers and to educators. So
exactly.
That's, yeah.
And she said, as she said in her abstract, she wishes that you can examine your own professional learning from a new perspective. And she's offered us the tool for doing that. So Thank you, Denise, once more. And I think
again, I would like to thank all the participants in these sessions for their active participation. And please attend all the other sessions of this first day, and don't miss also the social event with the Fergal Kavanagh Songs of Hope. Okay, so see you in a while.
You said that the road to happiness was long and winding. You said that the forest would get dark, and that the ground could shift here upon this hill we're climbing. No matter how close we get, we're still so far. But I trust we'll find the clearing. I'm trusting the trail. No matter what we're feeling, there's one way we can't fail. Let's just keep hiking. Let's plant our feet. Let's just keep hiking. Keep hiking with me. Hold my hand, baby. Keep hiking with me. You said the road up to success was an impossible test unless we had some sort of map. And I could feel it in my chest just as our feet begged us to rest. I think this just might be the end of that. but I said I trust we'll find the clearing. I'm trusting the trail. No matter what we're feeling, there's one way we can't fail. Let's just keep hiking. Let's plant our feet. Let's just keep hiking. Keep hiking with me. Hold my hand, baby. Keep hiking.